I'm standing on a ridge that may be one of Grant and I's favorite ridges to hunt here at the Proving Grounds, and that didn't happen by accident. Several years ago, this ridge didn't look much different than the typical Ozark mountain ridges. It was mixed with hardwoods, hickories, post oaks, red oaks, and cedars in between. It wasn't doing any good for hunting or habitat. We knew this ridge had a lot of potential, but we didn't just rush in with yellow equipment and start pushing trees out of the way. We really took our time to design a specific habitat plan that would also create great hunting opportunities. Habitat can be great. You can have high quality habitat on your property, and that can pack in a lot of critters, grow antlers, support a lot of turkeys. But if you don't have a really thought out hunting strategy and design the habitat to tailor to your hunting strategy, you can have great habitat, but it could be difficult to hunt. But as landowners, wildlife managers, and hunters, we need to pair quality habitat with a good thought out hunting plan. Grant and I travel across the country helping landowners develop these type of plans. In fact, next week, I'll be visiting with 3 different landowners, helping each one of them with a site-specific plan. And we're not just laying out food plots or just laying out native habitat. We're designing it in such a way that they can have great hunting opportunities. One may be a bow hunter. That's going to look a lot different than maybe someone that just primarily firearm hunts with their family. We need to create these in such a way to meet the landowner's specific goals. That's exactly what we do at the Proving Grounds too. And this ridge is a prime example. I mentioned that this ridge historically hadn't offered much habitat for critters. So we started developing a site-specific plan. How are we going to make this ridge produce a lot of quality food and cover and great hunting opportunities? So we started by doing a lot of walking around this ridge and realized that the terrain was such that it was creating a great elevator ridge. And when we say elevator ridge, that means the terrain is such where critters can go from high to low elevation fairly easy. They don't want to go straight up a mountain if they don't have to. If they can go up and down fairly easy, that's the path of least resistance. And out on this eastern point, there's such an elevator ridge that critters can go up and down the elevation, up and down the mountain with ease. When we saw this, we realized this was probably going to be a great travel corridor, especially during the pre-rut and rut. We realized we had several acres of food that we could lay out on top of this ridge. So we brought in equipment, they cleared it out. One of Grant's friends did a great job, pushed everything into the middle of the plot, burned and buried and leveled, so we didn't have those big tree piles off to the edge. You don't want those, folks. Those are just nasty piles that will last forever and hold a lot of groundhogs and critters and coyotes that you don't want. Push everything to the middle of the plot, burn, bury, level. You've got a clean plot ready to plant. We did that, added some acres, have been planting this plot, and have a great stand of crops grown here on top of the mountain. But we didn't stop there. Just a few years later, as budget allowed, right over the slope here, there was a thick stand of cedars. And those cedars were on a south-facing slope. So we brought in a crew using steel chainsaws. They felled all those cedars, and we allowed them to lay for 2 years, then used prescribed fire to remove that slash, all that fuel, getting a lot of sunlight to the ground. And now, only within 50 yards, we've got food and high quality native habitat right next together. That native habitat on that south slope, which is receiving a lot of sunlight, that's restored back to native habitat. It looks like it did 100+ years ago. Incredible habitat for both deer, turkey, and many other species. But for hunting, we've got a pile of acres right here on this ridge that are perfect for deer. And on that south-facing slope, having food, cover, and then 50 yards away, high quality food plot, the hunting has been incredible. This was not just an accident in design. We created a food source, tucked it right up next to an area we knew we could get many acres of habitat, and we actually left a little hardwood strip as a little hardwood travel corridor to run right there, creating another bottleneck. So we've got food, a travel corridor, cover right here on this ridge. It looks awesome. We put a stand several years ago, right after we created the plot, on the east point. It's a little bottleneck right there on top of that elevator ridge we were talking about. And during the pre-rut, bucks love to travel through there. They'll go up and down and dump out into this food plot to feed, grab a few bites, dump off. We've seen that time after time on our Moultrie mobiles. That is a hot spot for buck activity. In fact, the first time we hunted that stand was during the pre-rut, early November, and I tagged a nice buck we call Frost. The next season, Grant had several encounters with a mature buck we called Slingshot. Unfortunately, we weren't able to put Slingshot in the freezer at that time. As a bow hunter, getting a buck within 20, 30 yards, well, it's all about bottlenecks. And how we designed this food plot, where we placed it, how we manipulated the habitat to direct deer to use those natural funnels and use those hard edges of the food plot and the cover, well, it all came together. In fact, last year, Grant tagged another nice buck we call Righty out of that same stand. It was almost the exact day in November that I had tagged Frost a few years earlier. That point is a hot spot during the pre-rut and rut. We don't only hunt with bows. Grant and I also like hunting with the Winchester, and we decided that this area was so good we needed to have a redneck blind on the other end of the plot so we could cover more acres of the food plot and catch deer crossing during the rut. Missouri's firearm season falls right during the peak of the rut, and we wanted to be able to cover as many acres here catching bucks as they cross through. This redneck's positioned in a location that allows us to slip in with very minimal disturbance. Remember, you want to be able to approach, hunt, and exit your hunting locations without alerting deer. Alerting deer can burn out hunting locations very quickly, and deer can learn to avoid those areas during daylight. So we need to have a thought out strategy. So we put the redneck right here on this western side, and we can approach on the northern slope of this ridge, slide in, whether in the afternoon or the morning, have minimal disturbance, slide right up into this redneck and overlook this ridge. It's a proven hunting location. In fact, one of our team members tagged a buck we called Slingshot from that blind during the rut. Slingshot was crossing here in the middle of the plot, and he put his tag on old Slingshot. During another hunt, Ray was behind the Winchester, and if you watch Growing Deer very long, you know Ray knows how to hunt. And she tagged a nice buck from this redneck. And then just a few years ago, Grant was also hunting from the blind when a buck we called Shorty stepped out. It was during the rut. Shorty was coming up out of that native habitat area. If you watch closely, he doesn't stop to get a bite to eat. He's just crossing. And this large food plot acts almost like a shooting lane during the rut. Grant was able to tag Shorty with Deer Season XP, and we had another buck down on this ridge.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Black Widow Bows, Moultrie Mobile, Steel, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Morel Targets, Fourth Arrow, Soil Pro Outdoors, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Burris Optics, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
With the redneck on the west side, the stand on the east side, we can hunt this ridge during different wind conditions. We can approach and enter from different directions. It gives us a lot of hunting opportunities depending on the conditions and the time of year, which resources deer are using. During the pre-rut, most of the bucks that we've seen are coming off from the north slope. We've got the dark, cool, shady north slope that has acorns. When bucks during the rut are looking for those receptive does, or during the late season after the rut, they're bedded close to food, needing that south-facing slope to receive more sunlight. They can come off that south side and cross and feed into our food plot. It's enjoyable to have a well-thought-out hunting plan, and when it comes together, you're always excited. But I gotta tell you, the most important plan that you could put together is a well-thought-out plan for your life. And the best how-to book that there is out there is the Bible. I hope you slow down this week, dive into Scripture, and seek the Creator, because He has a plan for your life. He has a purpose for you, and He wants to share that with you so badly. So slow down, listen to the Creator, seek His will, and follow Him daily. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.